up, party people? I'm Marie Forleo, and for over 20 years, I have been obsessed with learning what it takes to turn dreams into reality. You know, I started my company back in the day with no clue, no connections, no money, and over time grew it into something spectacular. I created the award-winning show, Marie TV, was named by Oprah as a thought leader for the next generation, and wrote the instant #1 New York Times bestseller, Everything is Figure-Outable. I've helped millions of people transform their businesses and lives. And guess what? Every week, I'm going to help you take action and make the difference you were born to make. But please do not expect anything about this podcast to be traditional. We've got songs, weird sound effects, the occasional F-bombs, maybe some fart jokes if you're lucky, and anything else that makes me laugh. It's all fair game because this is the Marie Forleo Podcast. If you're finding it hard to feel inspired or creative or energized right now, guess what? You are not alone. The emotional toll of this pandemic, man, is it real. But there are steps you can take to start feeling better. So in this episode, we're going to talk about why it is vital to opt out of nonstop negative news and what to focus on instead. My case today is backed up by a unique combination of brain science, Milli Vanilli, and good old common sense. You're also going to hear from a special guest who's an expert on the power of good news, Mr. Tank Sinatra. But first, a word from today's sponsor. I'm Marie Forleo, and I quit writing boring copy after I discovered nobody wants to read that shit. If you have problems writing in a way that's true to your voice and helps convert browsers into buyers, the Copy Cure may be right for you. Check with your health professional, and after she says she doesn't care about your writing skills, sign up for our free 7-day writing class at thecopycure.com. That's thecopycure.com. All right, here we go, people. First of all, thank you so much. We are loving the voicemails that y'all have been sending. If you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, just Google Leave Marie Forleo a voicemail and you will get the entire scoop. So when we were listening to your voicemails this week, we noticed a recurring theme. There's a lot of people not feeling like themselves these days, which makes a whole lot of sense given the fact we are in the midst of a global pandemic, right? Folks are feeling lethargic and unfocused and finding it harder and harder to just get things done. So let's dive straight into today's Hey Marie segment and talk about some steps we can all take to start feeling better now.
Hey Marie.
Hey Marie.
Oh Marie.
Oh Marie.
Can you tell me the answer, please?
Answer please.
Oh baby.
Baby.
Can you help me?
Help me.
Hey Marie. Hey Marie.
Hey Marie, this is Smita from Bangalore, India, and I love your podcast and your book and basically everything about you. You are so freaking awesome and inspiring, especially your energy. My question for you is, during these times of uncertainty, it's hard to feel very creative or inspired or productive. So even though technically we have more time on our hands, it's not very easy to, do stuff. It's usually we get into this sense of blah, So can you give me tips on how to get over that?
Says Smita, great question. You are not alone, my love. But more importantly, these feelings you're having are not your fault. In fact, outside of this global crisis, there's another more insidious reason you might be feeling especially blah and low energy these days. And surprisingly, Milli Vanilli has our answer.
Blame it on the news. My energy is falling. Blame it on the news. I'm watching morning till night. Whatever you do, don't put the blame on you. Blame it on the news. Yeah.
Seriously though, right now, most of us are consuming a lot more news than usual. I mean, we're checking the headlines when we wake up. Maybe we're getting news alerts all day long. And then, let's be honest, we're probably watching even more news at night. Make no mistake, There is a direct connection between what you're watching, reading, and listening to all damn day and how you feel, your energy levels, your mood, your ambition. Now, to understand how this all fits together, let's look at the nature of both the news media and some simple neuroscience. For example, did you know that there's a long-standing adage in the news industry that goes like this? If it bleeds, it leads. I know it's a horrible statement, but it's true. Now, what does it mean? It means that many newspapers, TV, and cable networks use fear and pain to hook our attention and keep us coming back for more. So that jolt of adrenaline and the negativity, as weird and strange as this is going to sound, it can actually be addictive to our brains. Why is that? Because of something called negativity bias. So negativity bias is something I've talked about many times before. It is the human tendency to pay more attention and give more weight to negative experiences over positive or neutral ones. This is not just some fancy pants psychological concept. This is real, people. Our brains are literally wired to notice more of the bad stuff and pretty much ignore the good stuff. It's evolutionary. We did actually a whole Marie TV episode on this. If you just Google Marie Forleo negativity bias, you will find it. So watching the news isn't just addictive, though. It's also terrible for your health. Nonstop negativity weakens your immune system, right? Increases anxiety. And guess what? Ding, ding, ding. It reduces your ambition. So what's the fix? What do we do about it? 2 simple steps. Step number 1, reduce your traditional news consumption. And I'm talking no more than 1 serving per day. So here's how this looks in my life. Right now, I'm going to be honest, I am obsessed with watching New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and his daily briefings. I love this guy. Every single night, I literally get out my popcorn, I sit my ass down on the couch, and I watch his updates on YouTube. Why do I do that? Well, he delivers the facts with precision and empathy. He puts the data first, and then he tells us his opinion last. And he always separates fact from his opinion. He's got a whole new PowerPoint slide on it. I love it. He also says cool things like this, like, before you open your mouth, why don't you go look in the mirror? I love him. Anyway, every single time I watch, no matter how bad or terrible or painful the facts are, I actually leave feeling informed and energized and hopeful. It's so weird. It's like taking a Xanax in the middle of this pandemic, but then getting really inspired and wanting to change the world. It's awesome. I think it's a reflection of his leadership and his communication style, and honestly, I appreciate both. Now look, before anybody wants to come for me on this podcast thinking that I'm suggesting that you ignore the news or look past the suffering of others or pretend this all isn't happening, I need you to calm down. I am not suggesting that any of us turn a blind eye to anything negative, nor am I suggesting that we close our hearts and not be aware of the suffering of others. Do you know me? Have you paid attention to my work for any amount of time? If not, you need to get yourself educated because look, there is a distinction here. There is nuance. There is a limit to how much negative news any human being should be taking in each and every day. So yes, you got to be aware of the facts. Yes, you got to know what's happening so you can help. But no, you should not be watching nonstop negative news all day long and then feeling like crap. I believe we have to take our pain and our hurt and turn it into hope. And in order to do that, you have to have the energy to take productive action. So back to you, Smita. I want you to find a local news source that actually gives you the facts and leaves you feeling strong. Limit your intake of the facts to like maybe, 5 to 10 minutes max, and then just be done for the day. And once you do that, we are going to move on to step number 2. Increase your good news consumption and use what I call the 5-to-1 rule. My author friend Rick Hansen taught me this one. Our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences, but Teflon for positive ones. Again, that is negativity bias at work. So some studies have shown that in relationships, it actually takes 5 positive interactions to make up for a single negative one. And I think we should apply this 5-to-1 rule to our consumption of negative news. Don't you think? I think. So here's how it's going to work. From this moment forward, each time you choose to consume one bit of traditional news, seek out 5 pieces of good news to counterbalance it. That's right. So for every little bit of negativity you allow into that beautiful mind of yours, go find 5 positive or inspiring or funny or hopeful things that are happening. And here's an example to get you started. So there's this woman, right, who lives alone and is completely isolated during this pandemic. She's got no spouse, no kids, no pets, no one to be in quarantine with. So instead of feeling sorry for herself or letting fear or negativity take over, guess what? She decided to use what she had in her kitchen to make a difference to others. So she cooked up this big old tray of eggplant parm and she posted an update on Nextdoor, which is this app here in the States that helps neighbors stay connected to each other. And she said, look, I just made a big tray of eggplant parm. If you're hungry, if you don't have food right now, come by my front porch and get it. And so she left these individually wrapped portions on her front porch so people could just safely come and get something to eat. And it was such a hit that she's been making meals for her community every few days. So check it out, right? Instead of watching nonstop negative news all day long or feeling bad or sorry for herself, she decided to do something productive instead. She's not only serving up eggplant parm, people, she is serving up some good news too. I mean, don't you feel inspired by this? I don't even feel inspired. I actually feel hungry. Anyway, if you're still not convinced on the power of looking for good news, then I think you need to meet my next guest, Mr. Tank Sinatra. He's the founder of the popular website and Instagram account at Tank's Good News. So, Tank, thanks so much for joining me on the Marie Forleo podcast. Today, we are talking about the power of good news. And I was like, who better to have on the show to talk about this with me than you? Yeah, exactly. The guy. So can you tell us why and how you started your sites?
So I'm 39 years old. I've been on this planet that long. And from as early as I can remember, I didn't understand why the news, all they wanted to talk about. I remember being a kid and being like, the world seems like a scary place. Growing up in New York, there was always kidnappings and robberies and murders. And what I quickly learned is that none of that stuff was happening around me. And if I didn't get it from an external source, I didn't have to feel bad about everything going on bad in the world. Because, you know, if you talked about neuroscience, you know that the brain really doesn't know the difference between what it's imagining and what is real. You know, so if you're watching the news and your mouth is dry and your heart is pounding and you're angry and then somebody says something and you're snapping at them, now there's misplaced anger going on just because you had to watch this thing that you're addicted to. I don't blame the media or us. I think it's just one of those things where somebody who wanted to make a lot of money figured out this weakness that humans have, and it's a weakness for negativity. So
yeah. Negativity bias. That's what we just talked about. The brain is hardwired to give more attention to the negative than the positive. It's evolutionary. It's just part of how we're built.
Yeah, we want to survive.
Yeah.
So if there's a snake on this pathway, you got to remember not to go down that pathway. So I guess I didn't figure it out. I just kind of experimented, and I had seen some really beautiful stories go viral over the years. I've been on the internet a long time. And I don't know, I just said, what the media is doing is they're creating a visceral reaction in people. That reaction happens to be negative. What if I could create a visceral reaction that's positive, where instead of your mouth getting dry or you getting angry, you're crying tears of joy, or you're getting a little heart flutter, or you're feeling for the first time in however long, like the world is not a scary place and it's not out to get you. So I just try and pollute my brain with positivity as much as possible.
I'm actually just curious about this personally. How do you find the good news? Like, where does it come from? Do you have other people that search for it? Is this all you? Do people submit things? How does it come about?
No, so the thing is, it's really not that hard to find. That's the trick. It's like, you would think that, I remember when I started the page, Hurricane Harvey was going on. And what I realized was that the local news I was posting only huge stories. J.J. Watt raising $20 million, the Cajun Navy driving hundreds of miles to rescue people. And I remember I happened to have the news on one day in the house, and I saw a video or a story of a little 4-year-old boy who had fallen off a deck in the Bronx and died, right? It wasn't Eric Clapton's son falling out of a window. It wasn't some powerful person's kid. It wasn't a extenuating circumstances. It was just some family who lost their child, and that made the news. And what occurred to me was that it doesn't always need to be big news. It can be little news. And if I attack it with that attitude, I'm never going to run out of good news ever. And it's so easy to find. I mean, at this point, there was one point very early on in the development of the page, maybe like 2 weeks in, where I realized I almost felt like my work was done with the page, because not only was the page growing, but people were then starting to send me stories. And I was like, that means they're turning around from the Instagram page, going out into the world and finding their own good news.
Yes.
Like the ripple effect has begun. So people send it. I like finding my own. I have a bunch of different sources that I go to. Every big media outlet has a good news page or section or human interest. It's just buried behind the shootings and the fires and the coronavirus and all that.
I'll tell you, I live for NBC Nightly News at the end. There's Inspiring America. There's like all the segments at the end that are the human interest stories. And it's like, I live for them. And they're amazing. They are so amazing. So I just want to appreciate on you and thank you for what you do in pulling them all together for us. I don't know if you want to talk into this or not. And if it's not interesting, that's cool. I was wondering if you could talk about the difference between toxic positivity and genuine helpful positivity. This notion of toxic positivity is around that it's almost this subtle nuance, right? Where people are like, never give up.
Okay.
You know, and it's just going down this one side where it almost feels like there's a lack of empathy or compassion for a whole range of positivity that could also include the fact, you know what, sometimes you do have to cut your losses and that's not necessarily negative. Or you know what, things are hard and it's okay to take a rest and then you get back up. It's a bit more of a, I would say, holistic version of positivity that most of us can relate to versus a toxic version, which would make people feel like, oh my gosh, if I take a nap, I'm just losing that life.
So the reason that I was confused when you brought that up is because I remember coming across that and landing on the fact that that's just not positivity to me. That's not even that's not toxic positivity. There's a couple of people out there on the internet who, like, I always want to be careful for a few things. One, I try to make sure that my page, the things that I post, the stories that I pick, the captions that I write are never too sappy or preachy. Because I never want it to come across like I don't know what's going on in the world, or I'm somehow unaware of the fact that bad things are going on. I don't have my head buried in the sand. I'm not Pollyanna. I just happen to look at the good news, 80%, bad news, 20%. And the news is just bad news.
Right.
It's not 95-5. It's not 100-0. It's not 50-50 because, like you said, the 5-1, you really got to offset that somehow.
Totally. I was doing research too. And, there's this old adage, right? You know, I've been running my business now for 20 years and I'm just fascinated. I'm fascinated with advertising. I'm fascinated with media, fascinated with commercials. Yeah. And there's this old adage, like if it bleeds, it leads, right? And that's been around forever. It's been around forever. It just speaks into what you're talking about. So what do you think that we as individuals can do? And we talked about this a little bit already. Someone listening to this right now, getting on board, going like, yes, I want to get this 5-1 ratio down. I want to start looking for it in my life. And let's say they're in India. Actually, today's question was from one of our viewers in Bangalore, India, earlier on in this podcast. Anything that you would say to them to do to start kind of cultivating this in their own communities, in their own countries, in their own worlds, wherever they are?
Yeah, I mean, it starts internally. It starts with one. It's one of those things where if you try and bite off more than you can chew, you wind up getting frustrated and saying, "Oh, this is fake. This is not real. I can't actually do this."
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. I read a page of probably 10 different books a day, maybe 2 pages.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine. So I'm in recovery, and there's a book that people read in regards to recovery. And the first thing that I wanted to say was just that in that book, they talk about constant vigilance. If you're not ready to do the hard work, then you're probably not going to get what you're looking for. But I would rather put a little work in and be, I'd rather force myself to be happy than be naturally sad. Mm-hmm. There is effort to be put into this if you want what's happening, or if you want the results. But just constant vigilance and constantly making sure that if you find yourself indulging in something that's making you feel bad, like my son, perfect example. My son is terrified of these things that he finds on the internet. And he wants to prove how tough he is. He's 7 years old. He's showing me on the phone. He goes, look, this isn't even scary. This isn't even scary. And then 20 minutes later, he's screaming because he went into his room alone and it was dark. It was literally 1:30 in the afternoon. There was no darkness to be found anywhere. But I said, GJ, this is what I'm telling you about this stuff. You think you can get past it. And what happens is just like, because what happens is he searches for scary stuff on Google, and then Google's algorithm feeds that into his Roblox, so these things show up in the games. He doesn't realize that yet. I said, your brain works just like that. So if you plant things in your brain, it might not scare you right now, but 20 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days from now, you're going to have a thing. It's going to pop up. Your brain is going to call that back, and it's going to make it appear real, and it's not real. You got to be careful about what you allow into your own algorithm, your own brain.
I adore you. There's a part. So I wrote this book. I have to say this because it's so aligned with what you're saying. So I wrote this book called Everything is Figureoutable, right? And there's this chapter in it where we talk about the RAS, the part of the brain, your reticular activating system, where it's basically your filtering system, right? Because your brain cannot take in all the data. It cannot take in all of the input that's constantly coming in. It has to choose what's important. And when you look for something, you're all of a sudden going to find it. What we seek, we find. And so just like you're talking about with your son, just like this right now, this whole conversation, when you start looking for good news and that becomes an intentional focus, you actually start finding it all over the place. And it's kind of amazing. I heard something about you. Were you a fencer? Did you used to do fencing?
I sold fence.
You sold fence. Okay.
Fence.
That's
like property fence.
Property fence. Cool. And do you no longer do that?
No, it's one of those words where like, when people, when they realize what it is, they go, oh, that makes so much more sense than you being a fencer with a foil.
Amazing.
But that's what everyone thinks. Yeah, I don't, I stopped that. I stopped doing that. Wow. It was December of 2017 that I left that company. Yeah.
Could you ever have imagined what you're doing now as your full-time? And like, you are so funny. I sent you a meme that you created in probably 2017, actually. And it was one about God and fish. I'm telling you, Tank, like every time I see it, I can't stop. Like it's literally, it's amazing. You are so good at what you do. So one thing people wouldn't expect about you, anything. What do you think?
I don't know if they wouldn't expect it, but I don't know if they would know to the extent that I love music.
Tell me more.
So when I got sober in 2002, I said there's two things I'm going to allow myself to do that may require me to be around alcohol, right? I'm going to allow myself to go to comedy clubs, and I'm going to allow myself to go to concerts or anything involving music, whether it's a club and the people are doing drugs there. Like, I don't care. I'm there for the right reason, and I need to allow myself that.
Yeah.
I just find that music is something that, like my other page, Influencers in the Wild, has grown exponentially because it's not dependent on the English language. So my page is Tank Sinatra, Tank's Good News. As big as they are, they're very limited because it's only the UK, Canada, and America. With music, you kind of cut through all that, and it's like, I don't know, Jay-Z is my favorite artist of all time. And the way that he describes the way he makes music is he listens to the beat. He tries to figure out what kind of emotion the music itself is trying to emote. Then he figures out how he wants to say what he wants to say, meaning the beat of the staccato of how he's going to say it. And then he puts the words into that format. And it's like the fact that these things didn't exist and now they do. I just love listening to a song once, twice, 100 times, 1,500 times, and hearing, like, it just never gets old. It's like reading. It's like reading a book that you've read 1,000,000 times. If you're doing your job as a human, from the time you read that book to the time you're reading it now, you should have changed a little bit, and you should pick up on new things in the book.
I agree with you.
Same thing with music.
100%. I love that. Some of my favorite books, like I read every year, and they're always different and they're always fresh.
It's
and
crazy.
It always feels like coming home to like a really good sweater too.
It's like they're reprinted. It's like they literally took the words out that you read the first time and put new words in. They didn't, but you pick up on different stuff, like the RAS thing you're talking about.
Absolutely. I'm with you on
Reticular.
music. really with you on music. I'm actually very excited. I'm going to probably send you the clip of me singing. I made up a little ditty around Milli Vanilli as it relates to this episode. I'm going to send it to you because I know you're going to want to hear it again and again.
Of course, yeah.
For anyone right now who is just like, we need more Tank, tell us where everyone can find you. They can follow your pages, your podcast, anything you want to share with us.
My main things are on Instagram. It's Tank Sinatra, Tank's Good News, Influencers in the Wild, and tanksgoodnews.com. And I also am, so I was talking to an investor about investing in Tank's Good News.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out because of multiple different reasons, right? But an unbelievable guy, really good guy. So I said, let's keep in touch. If something comes up, we'll work on that. He called me last week and he said that he's launching something called the True Heroes Fund, where we're going to be finding, like, my sister-in-law is a nurse.
Yes.
And she just became a nurse like 6 months ago. To me, that's like joining the military during peacetime. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're overseas fighting a war. Like, she was not expecting to get into this. So whether it's somebody new, somebody seasoned, somebody who retired and is coming back, whether they have to stay in a hotel, they can't buy protective equipment, whatever it is, we want to support the people who are in the medical field, literally putting their lives on the line for us.
Yes.
This guy has donated $1 million of his own money. We're going to try and raise another $1 million. If we raise another $1 million, he's going to match it with another $1 million. So it'll be $3 million to go from everything for masks to food to funerals of people who have, lost their lives working in the front line. So it's something that I'm very excited about. It's called the True Heroes Fund. I can't wait to launch it. I think it's going to be launched on Monday. So if this comes out on Tuesday, then it'll be live at that point.
Well, you have my support right now. You also have my commitment.
Yeah.
I will donate as well. And if you want, we'll talk, after this, but we can coordinate a little bit. And I'm happy to support you with all of our channels and everything that we do, because making a difference and putting that into action is something that we take very seriously. And it's one of our highest values. So I'm in.
Yeah. Action. Yeah. And then eventually what we're trying to do is have somewhat of like an award ceremony where we can, have people come for a night of entertainment, comedy, music, food, whatever, and give these people their due when this is all over and we can all finally get in a room together.
I love it. I love it. Tank, thank
wait.
you so very much for who you are. Thank you for what you create. Thank you for what you put out in the world, your humor, your big heart, your love. And thanks for making the time today.
Thank you.
All right, party people, let's turn this insight into action. Remember, we do not want passive listeners here on the Marie Forleo podcast. No, we do not. We want you to take what you learn and use it to create results. So here is your insight to action challenge for today. Part 1. I want you to commit right now to radically decrease your negative news consumption. I want you to get specific too. What's your maximum each day? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? What is that source of news? And what time of day is it best for you to really go in, get the information you need, and get out? And look, I don't want you to just commit. In fact, I want you to declare it. That's right. And if you're real passionate about this, you can even make me a video and send it to me on social. You can say something like, you know what, Marie, I declare I will no longer despair from mindlessly consuming too much damn negative news, or do it whatever way you want to do it, and tag me up. Now, part 2, you gotta go fill your feeds with some real good stuff, accounts that are inspiring or uplifting. And if you don't already, you should really be following me on Instagram. I'm at Marie Forleo, because I always post funny stuff and positive stuff and some dance moves and weird things, but it's always gonna make you feel great. And if you want even more accounts to follow, use the Google to find other positive news sources. There are tons of them out there. Now, of course, if you enjoyed this episode, screenshot it, tag me at Marie Forleo, and share it with your people. Or even better, leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, because let's face it, who likes crappy reviews? Nobody. And with that, I say thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay on your game and keep going for your dreams, because the world really does need that very special gift that only you have. Love you so much, and I'll catch you next time. Oh my goodness, you're incredible. You're still listening. Now look, if you enjoyed this podcast, I think you're going to really love my free audio training called How to Get Anything You Want. You're going to learn 3 strategies that'll give you the clarity and confidence to build your dreams on your terms. Just Google Marie Forleo, How to Get Anything You Want, and you can download this audio training for free right now. Enjoy it.